You're struggling to get things done in your day and in your life, and you're so easily distracted because the subjective experience of your life is like if you were a caveman who was offered to eat as much as he wants of the best pizza in the world and then to spend the night with Monica Bellucci. Or Sydney Sweeney would be a more time-relevant example. And for the ladies or anyone else attracted to men, I guess you're imagining Brad Pitt or Jason Momoa or whoever. In any case, I have 5 practical steps for you to bring order into your mind and into your life so that you can start getting things done and create a sense of forward momentum. Now, the first step is to explain this weird opening statement, because this statement helps us explain the historical context that we are living in. And why is the historical context important? Because this problem of being stuck in life, unable to get things done, struggling to create forward momentum, this problem has 2 main layers. One layer is psychological. The psychological explanation for feeling stuck is timeless, meaning that explanation is relevant today just like it was relevant 200, 500, and 1000 years ago. In my previous video, I talked precisely about this psychological explanation that was provided to us with most lucidity by Carl Jung and later by other Jungian psychologists. Now, today, in this video, we are talking about the historical context that isn't timeless, it's time relevant. So we are dealing with certain challenges that are contributing to our stuckness that previous generations haven't dealt with. And that's what I was getting at with the opening statement. What I meant by saying that your subjective experience is like if a caveman was offered all of those pleasures, what I meant to say was that your brain, just like my brain and the brain of every person living today, has not evolved to deal with this insane amount of easily accessible, effortless pleasure. We were not wired to have such easy, quick, effortless access to pleasures of all sorts. To make this more precise, effortless dopamine that is easily accessible and accessible at every second of the day is what makes you depleted, is what makes you lethargic, is what makes you, in most cases, unable to get things done in your day. Now, most people are aware by now that dopamine on its own is not negative. Maybe 5 years ago, there was still not much general knowledge or knowledge in general population regarding dopamine, and dopamine was kind of a bad word. Now we know that dopamine is something that you need in life to get things done. It's something that you need to create a sense of forward momentum. The problem is in effortless dopamine. For those of you who are not aware of this, we cannot make this video right now a whole video discussing everything that there is to be said about dopamine. We have to leave that for another time. It's enough to say that effortless dopamine is the problem. Well, we can acknowledge, hopefully, that we live in the age of effortless, easily accessible, cheap or free dopamine, which is one of the main reasons, once again, why you're unable to get things done in life, because it really saps you out of energy, drive, motivation, and intensity to engage in life and tackle the tasks and challenges of the day. Now, what is the first step once we have explained the historical context? The first step is, if we are aware and acknowledge the time that we are living in, to remove shame. Because it is fair to say that the default state of the modern individual is being distracted, overwhelmed, overstimulated. So the starting point, basically, the way that the society is set up, the starting point is being unable to get things done besides the bare minimum, and besides when there are severe consequences for not getting things done. And even then, it's questionable if you will get them done. This is not to put the bar low for you. This is not to tap you on your back and take away the responsibility. Far from it. Those of you who have been watching my videos, you know how big I am on taking personal responsibility. However, again, we have to acknowledge historical context and say, you cannot shame yourself for feeling distracted or feeling easily distracted. You cannot shame yourself for struggling with overstimulation and dysregulation, because that is not a you problem, that is the problem of the age that we are living in. To expand, or maybe make more specific our historical context, let's say this: the perfect citizen of the modern society, the perfect citizen is underslept, overworked, easily distracted, does not have authentic original thoughts, and is insecure. Why? Because we are living in consumeristic society or consumer society. And this is not a political statement. For those people out there who think that self-improvement and personal growth can be discussed without criticizing the society, without criticizing the system that we are living in, I have bad news for you. You are light years away from actually getting to the core of the issues that are preventing you from growing. So we have to acknowledge that Daddy Jeff Bezos and Daddy Mark Zuckerberg, people that a lot of young entrepreneur bros admire, we have to say that people like that are investing trillions of dollars into making you distracted and make you insecure, so that you could do what? Either spend hours on their platforms or spend thousands of dollars on their platforms on things that you don't need. Sorry for the realness. So, if this is the age that we are living in, then you have to remove shame. That is the first step, the most important step. You have to remove shame from the already difficult position that you find yourself in. Why is this extremely important? And I mentioned this in so many of my videos. Because if you're shaming yourself for something that is universally human, if you're shaming yourself, then the next step is you will feel under attack, you will feel under threat. What do? You are dysregulated and you are seeking to be safe. What does that lead to? You want to self-soothe. Well, if you're feeling dysregulated, irritated, unsafe, and you live in the age that we are living in, what type of self-soothing are you most likely to reach for? If you are dysregulated, disrupted from shaming yourself, and you're feeling really down, is the average person, I'm now saying you, but let's explain, is the average person more likely to regulate themselves and self-soothe by going on a walk and meditating and journaling, or are they more likely to binge eat, binge watch, indulge in adult content, and all these other maladaptive, unhealthy, and potentially self-destructive attempts at self-soothing? So here is a cycle. Self-shame, unfair self-shame for something that is not a you problem, something that is part of the human experience. Unfair self-shame, dysregulation, retreat, trying to reach safety through self-soothing, most likely reaching for maladaptive, unhealthy, self-destructive self-soothing mechanisms, making you more dysregulated, more ashamed of yourself, like most people after binge eating or watching adult content, more ashamed of yourself, which just continues the cycle. So now we know the first step if you're struggling in life to get things done is to understand that you are living in an age and society designed to make you dysregulated, designed to make you feel weak and lazy, designed to make you insecure. Then you cannot shame yourself. Yes, we are going to discuss all the things that you can do to break out of these chains. But first you must acknowledge that you are in many ways in shackles and chains of the digital, modern, hyper-consumeristic society. Then, from there, we move on to discussing how to be less easily distracted, how to be less easily overwhelmed, how to be less susceptible to temptations. And we start discussing the second step by posing a question. When are you most likely to fall victim to distractions, temptations, and overstimulation. When? Let me give you an answer. When you have zero structure to your day. What is opposite of flow? Opposite of flow is either zero structure or immensely rigid, overwhelming structure. Well, most people listening to this or watching this are not dealing with overly rigid, overwhelming, overly detailed structure. And if you are, we will address you as well, don't worry. But most people are dealing with not enough structure. And let's acknowledge that maybe your not enough structure or zero structure came as a result of having overly rigid structure in the past. So, if you have some guidelines to manage and channel your energy through your day, then you are less likely to get distracted and overwhelmed and dysregulated. Because you are less likely to spend portions of your day having no idea where to invest your time, energy, and attention. Because if, again, in our age, you have no idea where to invest your attention, time, or energy, there are plenty of opportunities for your time, energy, and attention to be hijacked. This is why it's historical context, because 300 years ago, if someone had no idea what to do with their day, they would go for a walk or chill, if they had the privilege of not working 15 hours per day. Let's imagine a person that 300 years ago had the privilege of not having to do much. And if they had no idea what to do, they would go for a walk or they would just lay down maybe on a beautiful field of grass. That's not the case with you. When you wake up having no idea how your day is going to look like, I can bet my life on the fact that at some point in the day, your attention is going to get hijacked, which will lead to your energy and your time getting hijacked. So some structure, not to become a productivity machine necessarily, but some structure to guide and channel your attention, time, and energy. Now let's address the overly rigid structure. We don't want to take a look at our calendar and to be terrified of it. That's the opposite extreme. That's equally problematic. So my challenge for you, how can you practice having a structure that works for you? You have to be able to see it visually. We cannot now deal with abstract ideas. Oh, I guess I need to do this. I guess I will do this. No. Here is your first real challenge. The first step was very real, not shaming yourself, but second step and first real challenge, real in the sense of you actually have to put something on paper or on the page of your laptop, whatever. You have to outline your day, and I would start by just identifying 1 to 3 main tasks that you want to do tomorrow. And then let's look at the week and also identify 1 to 3 main tasks that you want to accomplish this week that are going to take probably a bit longer. Maybe they're going to take more than one working session, more than one block of time dedicated to it. And then every night before you go to sleep, you identify 1 to 3 tasks for the next day. So let's say that every day when you wake up, you have awareness of 1 to 3 main things to get done. And over the course of the week, or when you look at your week, you have 1 to 3 bigger things that maybe multiple of these daily blocks will contribute to getting those bigger things done. One thing to mention here. I understand that some of you want to outline your day and you want to study a new language, practice piano, and you want to meditate, and you want to swim, and you want to go to the gym, and you want to read. All that is great. But if you are now at a point of life of not getting much done, for a moment, leave these ideas aside, these ideas of doing 15 different activities in a day. I know it can be at least momentarily discouraging, But this is now about building momentum so that at some point you will be doing maybe 15 things in a day. But if I challenge you like this and you say, oh, for me it's not enough to do 1 or 3 things, I listed 10 different activities. Well, can you afford in terms of, are you able, do you have historical evidence of yourself being able to do 10, 12, 13, 15 things in a day? Probably not. That's probably why you're listening to or watching this video. Again, no judgment, just reality and facts. So my challenge to you or for you is to outline the very next day and to outline 1 to 3 main things that you want to accomplish by the end of this week. And then tomorrow you outline the following day. And then day after that you outline the day after that, and so on and so forth. By the way, I will deliver some kind of checklist to help you with this. I will put it in the description of the video because, again, these 5 steps maybe can sound overwhelming in the video, so I want to give you a PDF checklist to make it easier. Let's move on to the 3rd step, because I think it's enough talking about the 2nd step. The whole point of the 2nd step is to acknowledge that you need some structure. So not zero structure and not overly rigid, overwhelming structure, so that you could what? So that you could channel attention, energy, and time, so that you can give some guidelines for how your attention, time, and energy are going to be invested. Because if you don't know how they're going to be invested, there are plenty of opportunities for them to get hijacked. Step number 3 is to view your day on the whole as a meditation session. And I know this could sound very weird. The point here is to explain that the goal is not to not get distracted, because that's an insane, unrealistic goal. We talked enough about the historical context. For you to not get distracted throughout your day is just unrealistic. So we are going to approach the day as a whole, as a meditation session. What does that mean? Most people are not aware that there are multiple steps, or let's say multiple movements in meditation. Or we could say that the attention muscle has multiple movements. Just like a muscle, physical muscles usually perform flexion, that is flexion and extension. We could talk about, again, attention muscle, if you're going to put it like that, for the sake of metaphor. What are the movements? Well, the movements are the following. Direct, meaning directing your attention at a certain thing, at a book, work task, a person, a movie, whatever. You are, or breath when you're meditating, directing your attention. Maintaining your attention or focus on that point. That's the whole idea of meditation. Maintain your attention on the breath or on the sensation of air coming in and out of your nostrils, whatever. Maintaining, so direct, maintain. Notice. Notice what? Well, notice when your attention drifts away, because it will inevitably drift away. If you tried meditation, you know it. If you talked ever to another human being, you know that no matter how engaging the conversation is, at some point maybe your attention will drift to a person that you saw with your peripheral sight, or something that you remember, or whatever. If you're watching a movie or a TV show, you know that at some point, again, no matter how engaging it is, at some point, even at least for a second, your attention drifts away. Notice, notice, notice. This is the whole practice of meditation, is noticing, catching yourself as quickly as possible when your attention drifts away. Then the final movement is redirect. Redirect to the original goal. Again, whether it's your breath, sensation of air coming in and out of nostrils, the book that you're reading, the task that you're doing, the person that you're talking to, redirect your attention there. To repeat, direct, maintain, notice, redirect. The most underrated step or movement of attention is noticing. We are not respecting it enough. We think that's a failure, but it's not a failure. That's the repetition. That's the actual repetition. That's where you're strengthening your attention, by noticing. So, how do we now translate this to the level of our day? There is a great difference between getting distracted and pulling yourself back to the original goal or task within 3 to 5 to 15 minutes versus getting distracted and spending an hour or two in that state of distraction. I know a lot of you think 20 minutes of being distracted is a lot, but I'm on purpose trying to expand our understanding in order to give ourselves grace. Because I know some people listening to this are struggling severely. So I don't want to say you need to catch yourself within 30 seconds of getting distracted. Yeah, that would be amazing. It would be amazing, especially in terms of when you're trying to get an important task done. It would be amazing that you're engaged in a task, attention drifts away, and within 20, 30 seconds you notice it, you redirect, and that's it. Beautiful. Okay. However, your day consists of many activities. And sometimes it's realistic that you get distracted and you spend 15 minutes in a state of completely being oblivious of the fact that your attention was even hijacked. So let's again have understanding for different activities, different levels of activities, and how our attention is involved in those different levels of activities. And let's say practice awareness and giving yourself grace at the same time. So, if you're going to approach your day as a meditation session, you are going to accept that you will get distracted. You're going to accept that your attention will drift away, and then your improvement, your success, your victory will not be not getting distracted. Your victory will be progressively getting better at noticing yourself and redirecting your attention. So over days and weeks and months, you will get better at noticing yourself more quickly when you get distracted and being faster but also more intentional about redirecting your attention back onto the main or original goal, task, stimuli, person, sensation, whatever. That was step number 3. Step number 4 is productivity related. Maybe finally something for those who want to talk just about getting things done. Here is something that I have used for my writing, for my video making, for creating educational material, whatever. The point or the form of this method is simple. You can do the thing or do nothing. And there is no third option. What does that mean? There is an essay that I want to write. And for this day, I have devoted a 90-minute block to writing it. Maybe I'm going to write it over the course of a couple of days. So now it's a 90-minute writing window. This is the only rule. When I sit down, I can write or I can do nothing. And there is no third option, meaning I cannot take my phone and check messages or check email, let alone check social media. I cannot start playing the guitar, even though I don't play the guitar, but just giving an example of another activity. I cannot go for a walk, even though I acknowledge that as a great self-regulation and inspiration-inducing method. Now, in this context, it's out of question. I cannot play music. I cannot watch something, watch an educational video. I cannot take a book to read. I can only do the thing or do nothing. What does this train? This trains sitting there with the struggle of completing the task or the struggle of even engaging in the task. But it also does it in a way where, again, it gives you grace. You know why? Because I will sit down with full awareness that I might write 5 sentences in 90 minutes. Because I have made the agreement with myself that that is okay. It is okay if I write only 5 sentences, as long as I didn't do anything other than write. But if I really sit with the discomfort, if I really sit with it, I am probably going to write more than 5 sentences. And without trying to sound cocky, I think my output proves that it often ends up being more than 5 sentences. It often ends up being more than a 1 minute video, as you are seeing. So the whole idea is to strengthen your ability to deal with resistance. For those of you who have read The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, you know, the famous concept of resistance that is familiar to every person who is trying to do something with their life, no matter what type of project it is. There is this strong resistance. Well, especially in creative pursuits, if you make this deal with yourself, because it is a deal, it is a negotiation, and that's a lot of what I have found in life. A lot of it is about negotiating with yourself and making deals that you will respect. So if you make a deal with yourself and you say, listen, you say to yourself, listen, it's okay if it's not the most productive session, as long as you either do the thing or you stare at the wall. As long as you don't engage in any other distracting or fun activities, it's okay. Even if you spend the first days and weeks with a very low level output in terms of what you are producing, I guarantee you that in a matter of a couple of weeks, you are going to consider yourself superhuman compared to what you were in the past, when you would sit down and would allow yourself to engage in pretty much any activity as soon as you hit the first roadblock, the first wave of resistance. So the major shift here will come from allowing yourself to get little done in that time window, as long as you do the thing or do nothing else. That was step number 4. The final one is self-regulation. If the previous step was practicing, confronting, and sitting with resistance, the 5th step of self-regulation is training us to do the same, but in a broader way. Meaning it's not just for the sake of productivity and getting things done, it's for the sake of becoming more human. What does that mean? Well, a lot of self-regulation practices, or actually every self-regulation practice, is going to involve you dealing with some boredom, dealing with some uncomfortable feelings, and dealing with yourself and your awareness of yourself and of your body. Self-regulation practices are, basically, if we take self-regulation properly as a concept, there is infinite amount of self-regulation practices. Self-regulation is anything that you adopt as a practice that brings you back to your baseline. Now we have some more traditional, like breathing. You can search on YouTube 4-7-8 breathing or box breathing, or you can do something like yoga nidra, or you can do some different form of meditation. So those are more traditional forms of self-regulation. However, going for a walk is a self-regulation practice. Writing or journaling is a self-regulation practice. And let me tell you, from my experience of working with people, working with clients, working with one-on-one clients, working with people in group settings, for people who are dealing with anxiety, for people who are prone to anxiety, for people who are prone to getting stuck in their own mind, journaling and walking often prove to be more efficient than meditation. Meditation, we are talking about the classical meditation of sitting in full silence and just following your breath. For people who are dealing with anxiety, with intrusive thoughts, for people who, again, have the tendency of getting stuck in their own mind, meditation, as valuable as it is for some other things, is not really the go-to move when you're feeling severely dysregulated. So, all of this to say is that self-regulation is a really broad term. So when I'm mentioning it as a 5th step, I cannot say, okay, here is what you will do and what every single person listening or watching to this will experience as beneficial immediately. I cannot make that promise. Anyone who makes that promise is dishonest. But some pretty safe practices to try are, for example, yoga nidra, are 4-7-8 breathing. Just don't overdo it. Do it for the first time for like 2 or 3 minutes. Again, journaling, going for a walk, having some sugar, not overindulging, not falling into the trap of maladaptive self-soothing, which would be binge eating, but maybe one block of chocolate. Sugar in right dosages can be immensely self-regulating. Now to expand the benefits of sugar for self-regulation, that would require another video, and to be completely honest, it will require preparing some arguments so that there is no misunderstanding. But for now, let's say that the spectrum of activities that could fall under healthy self-regulation, the spectrum is pretty much infinite. So let's say that I will include in the checklist that is going to be delivered to you, or that is going to be available to you in the link below the video, I'm going to just list some of the most practical ones, some of the most, let's say, lowest barrier to entry and most universal self-regulation practices that I pretty much already mentioned. You will just have them laid out in a more structured manner. Now, to give you a rundown once again. First step is understanding the historical concept that we are existing in, and that pretty much you're living in a society that is designed to make you easily distracted, overwhelmed, overstimulated, insecure, underslept, and all of that good stuff. Thank you, Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg. And as a result of that, the first step we continue the first step to say that you should remove self-shame. You should give yourself grace, because self-shaming will make you even more dysregulated. It will make you seek for unhealthy, quick, easily accessible self-soothing, which will continue the cycle of self-shaming, self-blaming, and feeling terrible about yourself, which will make you seek more cheap, easily accessible pleasure for the sake of maladaptive self-soothing. So no shame. Please be kind to yourself. It's not even being kind, it's just being fair. Just being fair to yourself. Number two, having some structure, some outline of how your day is going to look like, because what is opposite of flow? Opposite of flow is zero structure or overly rigid, overwhelming structure, overwhelmingly detailed structure. So this means that you will learn to outline your days. You will take on the challenge of identifying 1 to 3 main things to do the following day, and 1 to 3 main tasks of the week. And if you're someone who is really ambitious and multi-passionate, and you say that is not enough for me, well, you wouldn't be watching this video if you were able. Again, sorry, I don't know, it can sound like I'm talking to you in kind of a patronizing way, but you wouldn't be watching this video if you were able to get all of things done in all of your interests and passions and hobbies. So please take on the challenge of reducing it and having outline of a structure. Using structure, what did we say, as a way to guide the usage of, or channel the usage of, your attention, time, and energy. Some structure. Third, looking at your whole day as a meditation session, so that you would start practicing the movements of the attention muscle, that is direct, maintain, notice when it drifts away, redirect. So if in a meditation session, the point is to notice when your attention drifts away and then to redirect it onto your breath, in your day, you're going to accept and be okay with the fact that you will get distracted, and then the whole point and the whole success and victory of yourself over yourself will be in noticing when you got distracted and returning to the person, task, book, or whatever. Number 4, do the task or do nothing else, or do the thing or do nothing else. Meaning, when you're engaging in your work, in your creative tasks, in your side projects, adopt this rule where you sit down and you make an agreement with yourself. You do the thing or you do nothing, which makes it so that it is okay to not have the most productive session as long as you didn't engage in a distracting activity. You're training yourself to be able to deal with the boredom, to be able to deal with the resistance, to be able to handle the struggle, sometimes excruciating struggle, let's be honest, of finding it difficult to do the thing. But you don't reach for your phone, you don't reach for your whatever yo-yo or your guitar, and you don't reach for the TV remote, but you sit there And even if you get little done, you have still won a victory over resistance, over struggle, over boredom, over temptation, because you haven't engaged in anything else. You sat there and you got the amount of work that you were able to do. So practice this. Sit down, take a block of time, 60, 90, 120 minutes, whatever, depending on the task itself, and you say, it's okay if I don't get too much done, or if I don't get much done, as long as I do the thing or do nothing else. Lastly, self-regulation. You have to start implementing self-regulation as one of the absolutely necessary tools for the modern human being, because you have to be able to bring yourself back to baseline when feeling dysregulated. Also, self-regulation is a lot about being able to tolerate boredom, being able to tolerate lack of stimulation, and bringing yourself back to baseline after you have been overstimulated. So, again, an not extremely important, absolutely necessary, fundamental skill of the modern age, of the digital age, is self-regulation. It can take many different forms. Some of the most basic ones are conscious breathing, different breathwork methods, different meditative practices, walking, journaling, taking account of your self-talk, and taking care of shifting that self-talk if and when necessary. That's also a self-regulation method. Taking account of what your self-talk looks like and taking care of not allowing the self-talk to be self-destructive. Another self-regulation method. This is pretty much it. For now, I will say more than enough. You will find a PDF checklist below the video, which will probably help you. I know I didn't mention the main thing, which is basically the foundation that lies underneath all of this, which is training your attention to resist distractions and to focus deeply. However, all of these things contribute to the strength of your attention and focus. So it's all interconnected and inseparable from each other, or inseparable, excuse me. And because I'm making so many different videos about attention, this time I wanted to mention certain things that are other than specifically training your attention. So hopefully you found this helpful. You can check the checklist, for lack of better expression. And the last thing that I would say is, you are capable of reclaiming the power over yourself and over your inner resources, even in this weird age that we are living in. So if my explanation of the historical context of our age, if that explanation discouraged you a bit, I want to challenge you and say, don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. These are just facts of our age, but this is the age that we have. This is the time in history that we get to be alive in. And let's make the most use of it precisely by reclaiming the power over our most precious inner resources, which are attention, energy, and time. Thank you.